If there's ever been a series from Nintendo I always wanted to try out, it's none other than Pikmin. I even own Pikmin 1 and 3, so I'm not sure why I haven't played much of the series, besides one day at Pikmin 1. I ended up stopping because of the time limit, which is weird because Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda game, but I digress. I always thought the idea and concept of controlling these many small alien creatures to do your bidding and start a war against everything in your path was fun. I also find the Pikmin super adorable. I even remember when I was in Japan when I was 17, I found this yellow Pikmin plush and I had to get it because it sure has seen some shit. I even mained Olimar back in Smash 4, so it's safe to say I was very familiar with Pikmin outside of the games. I just never got around to playing Pikmin much in my life. I do have a very early memory of playing Pikmin 2 at a demo kiosk in GameStop and just being confused. I really do think out of every fanbase or community though to ever exist, Pikmin fans seem to be the most wholesome and overall collected community, especially compared to the Animal Crossing community. It's why it's always so nice to see when we do get anything Pikmin related, because the support for the series from this community is always sweet. You can really tell everyone is very passionate about the games and waiting still for that Pikmin 4. One thing I love about Pikmin though is just how unique it is. I never hear much about games trying to copy it, or when they do, they just never come close to its gameplay. Pikmin just has this charm to it that even if you're not a fan of the games, you still end up falling in love with it in some way. Even having one of its songs reach top 5 in music charts over in Japan. I also stand by if there's any series that can have product placements and get away with it, it's Pikmin. Especially since this is supposed to be Earth. It just feels natural to see a Duracell battery in the world. If you don't agree with me though, then hey, it could have been like this.
Hey, neighbor.
Are you?
Jake from State Farm.
Oh, you hang out here, bro?
Yeah, hey, right next to the course in your neighborhood.
Hey, that's dope, fam.
I'll be seeing you around, MP. Let me know if you need anything. And remember, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I was waiting for you to say it, man. Hey, look, I appreciate this. Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, hey, listen, pleasure's all mine. Keep doing your thing.
While I've spent enough time gushing about Pikmin and what makes it so great, I think it's time to get my hands down and dirty by seeing what's so good about this series. By playing a PS2 Pikmin clone. This is The Adventures of Darwin. It's Pikmin, but with monkeys. I promise one day, guys, I'll make a real Pikmin video, but for now, this is what you're getting. Well, what is The Adventures of Darwin? It's a game where you control this monkey named Darwin. You go around collecting resources for your new monkey village to survive and conquer. Over time, your goal is to make your monkey become a man. Evolution and his name being Darwin, this game is one big reference, don't you get it? This game is one I remember finding and playing for a little bit and liking it. I think it's time to see what this game is about. I will say this game isn't really as similar to Pikmin as you would think. It does have multiple units and using them to bring stuff back or knock things over while fighting things bigger than you, but that's kind of where the similarities end. While Pikmin focuses more on rebuilding your ship to escape at any means necessary, Darwin, on the other hand, has you trying to build and own the land you're on. Everything you bring back has a reason and purpose. Even prioritizing said materials over others can affect how your town is built. From how late or early some training grounds or weapons get unlocked, to what villagers' houses move in and what tips and tricks they know. Meaning, every time you set out, you should be planning what materials you want to bring back and what is more important to your playstyle. I, however, just kind of brought back whatever I could find, and this did bite me in the ass later. I think now it's time to dive into my experience with this Pikmin clone game. And boy oh boy, is it a rocky one. I want to start this off by saying the early game of this is the most boring and mundane time I've had. I will say, this game easily gets more interesting when trips can be more than just picking one or two things up and leaving. The starting area luckily does take into account you're worthless and have no real help, so there's an area at the start where some materials and food are around, and even a gold star to gain an extra monkey. You have 5 after getting the star at this point, but most things here take 2 monkeys to carry. Most of my starting time was just doing this and slowly unlocking things in the village. I would also level up my village, and because I brought back a lot of wood, I unlocked the wood house. These houses give you tips based on things you brought back, but in all honesty, they never really were that helpful. This was my playthrough for about an hour, just wandering around collecting stuff and grabbing whatever gold stars I could find till I was able to beat the boss for the area. This giant mammoth guy. quick note, this is probably the only game where I prioritize attacking boosting items to help with some of the fights because, oh boy, this one is cheap. The issue with this guy is he's basically always attacking, and he attacks by dashing around. My only form of hitting him is getting close and swinging my hands, which has the worst range ever. Luckily, I can eat to refill my health and grab these red stars, so if I lose a monkey, it's not too bad. After doing this, I actually beat him on my first try, but it was super annoying. Once beaten, they drop a gold star and all your units are brought back. You then get the ability to knock down this wall if you have enough monkeys, which you should if you looked around for the gold stars. This will get you your first evolution item and evolve. You get the rock axe and turn into 8 man. This is how all the areas will go. You can explore more after attaining this new weapon since it allows you to break obstacles to make new paths. I will say you'll probably just get a few more materials and some gold stars, but if you don't really care about doing this, then just go on to the next world. But with that being said, time to hit the next area thanks to our rock axe. We break this rock and are able to finally head down to the depths of the earth. Just like before, we are doing the exact same thing. We're still getting materials, stars, and all that to grow our village and our troops. I really like this area though over the last one since it has a puzzle you have to solve to reach the boss. There's this ramp where rocks are coming down and not all the ramps will have areas to hide in. That's why you have a reason now to explore around to knock these things down to create safe spots for the ramp. Without this, it still is possible to make it to the boss, but you probably will be close to death by the time you do. Another thing that happened during this was we got the ability to use new weapons like a spear and a wood axe. The spears are very useful since they give your monkey more range to hit things that your pitiful axe or hands couldn't. The spears, however, suck for the second fight, and thanks to the horrible AI of the boss, I basically stun locked him and won. The next evil item we get is a rope, and we evolve into Neanderthals. With the help of the rope, we can now reach the next area. The Great River is pretty cool since the whole idea around the area is breaking the rocks that block your way so you can use the river to travel around, but the river also ends up being more annoying than needed. This is the first area where if you come here without learning the new formations, it's basically unbeatable. Without them, precise platforming and getting your troops around is useless. This, however, ended up being one of the few annoying worlds since I learned that if the game realizes your troops can't get to you, it will just kill them. Oh yeah. Oh god, dude, they all fucking died. This wouldn't be so bad if the troops also weren't dumb and the formations actually kept you tightly together. Many times I would just end up trying to walk across stuff and have them fall off and die, meaning I then had to leave the stage to keep all the units but lose all progress, or leave through a safe hole and then go farm over and over for more just to come back here. This game also wants you to take it slow while putting enemies that will instantly knock you off for doing so, making you just trying to run usually safer. The boss for this world is also the most broken design-wise I've ever seen. I don't get why they made the boss like this, but they did. The issue with this boss is that half of the time you can't hit him, and the times you can are very small. You're supposed to trick him into diving into these whirlpools, which I think is a cool concept if it worked. He does get damaged for jumping into these, but the issue is after he does this, he ends up being too far out to hit after with any of your weapons. Legit making this option useless to do, and the damage from the pools isn't even that much to begin with. He also has this stupid bubble move which is hard to dodge and comes out fast. Almost every time you get hit, you will just fall into the water and have to regroup everyone to then carefully walk on the platform. This boss isn't really hard, just stupidly designed and takes forever to even do anything to him. I even remember when I had him at no health, he just wouldn't die. Well, the thing was, I did everything the game wanted me to do. So like the fact that I have a big enough army was just from playing the game normally. How are you not dead, dude? Just fucking die. Oh my god, dude. Just fucking die already. This is horseshit, dude. How is he not dead? Bro, dude, you cannot sit here. You cannot sit here and tell me this is programmed well. This is horseshit, dude. I refuse to believe you when you want to sit here and tell me this fight's programmed well. This is awful. you not dead? I don't understand. I ended up just skipping the boss at first to grab the item and evolve, which ended up being the better method apparently. We got the ladder and we evolved into Cro-Magnon. I think that's how you say it. I'm not gonna look it up. I'm sorry, I don't care. I did, however, go back and beat the boss, so don't worry, I did do it. The method the game wanted you to do, though, was ignore the boss and grab the item in evolution to then get the bow, which is a better spear. This would then allow you to hit him from everywhere, basically. The fact the game wanted you to just know to do this or somehow assume someone would do this is beyond me. The only hint the game did give you for this being an option was having the wall right next to the boss area. Which, again, you're probably not going to want to skip any of the bosses because you need them for gold stars. But maybe I'm the one who just didn't see that. Maybe this is very obvious to everyone else. But I'm going to say this wasn't obvious. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. The next area is erupting volcano, and I hate this area mostly because they thought, let's add nothing but really fast and hard-hitting enemies. This is also the most vertical stage so far, and can be quite confusing at times with all the random paths. This level also loves to put these guys everywhere, and the issue with them is if your people get hit by their powder attack, they're just gonna die. They can't get away and will just be hit till they die. It's really broken and so stupid to be hit by any of these guys because it's an instant restart. The level also introduces a key to get the actual evolution item. I don't get why this level and the next one are the only two that have this. It really doesn't make it harder or more rewarding to bring a key to unlock the next evolution item, especially since the keys are on the path you need to take anyways. You shouldn't ever reach the actual item chest without seeing these. One thing I do like that this game does is letting the first boss you fought be a basic enemy now. This is supposed to show you how far you've grown, since now a boss that you feared is just a basic enemy in your way. This again sadly stops being rewarding when you realize how cheap the first boss was, and I just end up keeping as much distance away from him and shooting stuff. One reason though why this level is harder versus the last one is because the game wants you to take advantage of the iron everywhere to make the iron tools, which means grind more to make the game longer if you didn't grind for iron before. This is kind of dumb compared to the old levels. The old levels did have difficulty spikes, but I never felt like I needed to just halt progression and grind because the game continued to make grinding feel rewarding in those levels. And this stage, it's either forced to grind or deal with the whole level of enemies that stun lock you, and they can't be easily hit, or have massive fire attacks. Even this guy can spit fire? Why? At the end of the stage, there's a small little walking path with hot springs everywhere that also damage you when they activate, with the mini boss bird flying around. The spaces between the hot springs are so small, it's next to impossible to keep everyone together where you won't get hit. These springs do a ton of damage as well, so that also sucks. The boss also, at the end, ends up being way more cheap than the first one since he's constantly dashing around and does way more damage. If it wasn't for the fact how bad the T-Rex AIs are in the game, where they can only stay in a certain boundary, meaning because of that I can do this, I would have just gave up. The item for this is a torch, and we finally evolve into humans. The final area is known as the Unknown Continent. This has to be one of the worst areas I've seen in this game so far. Like the last area where they basically placed nothing but really hard enemies, they did the same thing here, but 10 times worse. Many enemies as before can stun lock you. There's the T-Rexes out the ass here, many tight walking path areas where these birds can just dive bomb you, areas where if you fall off you basically have to trek back through the whole level, areas that lead to dead ends, these hazards that you need the max out tools to even break, and then a boss rush at the end, but it's optional if you want to skip it. This level really tests your patience with the game. If you don't take it slow or haven't memorized the level path, you will have a horrible time with this level. Each run can take up to 30 minutes just killing enemies one by one, since that's the safest strat. You also need to have around 20 monkeys by the end to even get to the boss rush area. There's some red stars and gold stars, but when most enemies can kill more than one easily, you have to really plan the perfect run. I will give them credit, it really does feel like a final world, but the difficulty can be incredibly cheap. Many times near the end, I would have this stuff happen. Let's make a circle. No, I need a line, that's the only way. Oh my god, stop. Don't knock him down. Don't knock him. This is fucking, like, it's stupid. It's stupid. I don't know what else to say. This is so fucking dumb. Alright, let's fucking walk across the whole thing again. Alright, they're just gonna die. Yep, nothing I can do. They're not, yep. And my friend who was watching me kept telling me I was rushing and needed to take it slow, which, again, the game actively punishes you for doing so when it comes to these bird enemies. Then again, he is the one who told me this boss was programmed well. So, thanks, Soshi. I finally kept pushing and kept going, and with all of that, I made it to the boss rush area, and so help me God, if you decide to do this area, I wish you luck. I'm pretty positive these bosses are optional, but you get gold stars for doing them, so they're worth it. The issue being is these bosses are mostly like the mammoth boss and never stop moving around and do insane amounts of damage. The goat and the bunny one being the two worst ones. Every enemy in these areas also charge at you and do a lot of damage. Even with an item that boosted my attack, it still was way harder than needed. The other two bosses were actually not that bad at all. The crocodile was just a cakewalk since he's slow and half of the time he just let me hit him. The plant boss was honestly my favorite boss in the whole game. This boss actually felt rewarding and fun to fight. You constantly have to be maneuvering around to dodge his fireball attacks but never get too close. It felt fair if I got hit because I was standing for too long and not observing the boss's attacks well enough. It's quite sad this is the only boss I have any praise for, but that is this game. Once all that is done, it's time to fight the final boss. The man, the creator, the all-powerful and knowing being, God himself. Or Zeus, but it's still God. It turns out he thinks you're selfish for eating meat and killing things. He decides he's going to reset the world for how selfish you're being. His motive is incredibly dumb. He's mad at us for killing and eating meat, while he made creatures that attack us and try to eat us. It just comes off as a weird atheist fanfiction for why God is bad. The boss is also the most spectacle boss out of the game, but it's actually pretty easy. I died one time though because he has this tornado attack that can stun lock you for a pretty long time, and occasionally he will just teleport over you without warning and do this lightning attack. The one way I could ever avoid this is if I already predicted he was going to teleport over to me. The lightning attack is pretty easy to avoid if he doesn't teleport over to you though. The fastest way to beat him is to stun lock him with the cannons. After enough damage is given, he turns into a demon form. My second time going against him, I killed him off screen with a cannon shot, so it just really shows how unimportant this second form is. I finally take him down, and Zeus decides to reward me for beating him by giving me the greatest gift known to every Texas person. A fucking gun. Then we see a thing that says 2,000 years later, and we killed everything thanks to our guns. Neat. Turns out this game has two endings, and this was the bad ending. I still don't know how to get the good ending, but I think you have to find everything in the game to do it. The only difference in the good ending is you get a crown, and 2,000 years later, you're thriving. This game really isn't worth it to get either ending, to be honest. Well, I think it's that time to talk about what I like and hate about this game, starting with the good things. It's not much, but there are some good things. I, for one, think the characters and enemies in the environments look actually pretty nice. It's not amazing, but it has a cute charm, especially the monkey models. My mom even joined my stream while playing this and even said the monkeys were cute, so they have something going for them. The music can be a hit or miss, but there's actually a few really good songs, especially the river song and the boss music. If you want to hear any of these songs, they sadly aren't on YouTube except for the boss music. I did think about uploading the OST like I did for Onengai, but I also am lazy, and every time I mass upload I lose subs, so maybe I won't do that. I do think the whole game revolving around building your town is neat to actually see it go from nothing to a lot of houses and shops. This does make the start of the game very slow and boring, but it helps the middle and later feel more rewarding. What's even cooler is at the start, your people talk in broken English, but once they're humans, they talk with perfect English. It really shows the growth of your village and its people because of this. Well, time to talk about the things that I hate about this game. This game's AI, both your units and the enemies, are just awful. A good example is fighting things. You legit have to spam the attack button because if you don't, the AI will just sometimes forget that they're attacking anything and stop. Sometimes they just won't attack at all while you spam it, so I guess it really doesn't matter. You can be right next to an enemy with all your units and sometimes only like 2 or 5 will attack at once. This happens so often and can make fights drag on because your units are just refusing to do anything. Spamming also means listening to this the whole time. Formations also can increase your attack or your defense by what formation you're in, but for the most part, I could never see a difference, mostly again because not all my units ever wanted to do anything. The AI for the enemies is kind of a gift for being so bad since it makes dealing with some of them so much easier. Occasionally, enemies will just stop doing anything and stand there to let you beat them up as if the AI forgot you were there. The T-Rexes are the best example, but again, I feel this was intentional. I feel if they didn't have this on the T-Rexes, they could easily chase you across the whole map since they're the most aggressive enemies in the game. The fact that so many things can just stun lock you in the game and kill the majority of your units is soul crushing and cheap. Even with the best weapons, if your units ever get caught in these, you might as well restart since a lot of the attacks can just put them to sleep, which lasts forever. The bosses are just horrible and cheap to the point I never felt rewarded except for the plant boss for fighting them. It's just not fun to frantically try to kill something that never stops moving and can just dash around with no real wind up. The third boss again being the best example for how dumb these fights are since the game wanted you to ignore it and come back to it later to beat it the intended way. The houses and stuff in the village are usually pretty useless since a lot of the tips they give is just bring more of said resource. Making a lot of the time, I just stopped caring to check on any of these new houses since it was going to be the same tips and tricks that they always tell you. Just bring more of that resource, or you can do this with that resource. The last thing I hate about this game is the fact the game wants you to take things slow and take your time with it and gather resources, but it makes doing so tedious and actually can ruin a run because you decided to take it slow. One thing the game does I think is nice is having these things scattered around the levels. They're basically safe holes. It's a way to save your resources and progress in the level and get back to the village really fast. This can be useful if you did a lot of things and don't want to lose your progress. The issue with these is once you go through it, that's it. You can't fast travel back to the cave you used and have to retrek back to the level and do it all over again. It would have been nice if the game rewarded you for finding these as fast travel points, that way you felt rewarded for using these. These end up being pretty useless for the last 2 worlds since those require so much time to trek through the stage and kill things, you're going to end up just not wanting to leave early and instead try to do everything at once if possible. Which then can lead to a lot of frustration when your units die and you have to make the choice to save my progress but spend up to 10 to 15 minutes entering and leaving levels to get all my units back if there's not enough at the bar, or restart the level entirely but keep all my units. The final world has one right outside the boss area, and I'm sure the intent was every boss fight you do, you can go to the cave and save your progress and come back, but if that's what the devs wanted you to do, then you were easily looking at trekking through this world 5 times, and that's if you never made any mistakes. I do like the option of pushing your luck and risk dying or play it safe and save but then spend more time backtracking, but man, it becomes where it starts to feel like padding instead of rewarding skilled players. There's just again a lot of issues with this game, but by no means is this the worst game I've ever played. In fact, it's a fun trek if you can just ignore these issues, but I, however, can't really ignore them all the time. Well, maybe in the next video I'll do an actual Pikmin video for you guys. Or I can keep playing these clone games instead. I think that's a better option.